Hello and welcome everyone, this is Vinrock39 again. I'm going to share a video with everyone about the DMR weapons and any other high damage weapon in the game, at least in my opinion. There are a few shotguns that reach a really high level of damage, as well as some SMGs and assault rifles. I won't be covering any of the grenade launchers or rocket launchers for that matter. The bows I'm going to leave out of this, so I just singled out a good amount of assault rifles, a fair amount of SMGs, and some akimbo pistols, as well as shotguns. So this video is going to focus mainly on the high damage weapons. Now, just so everyone is clear, high damage on your weapons isn't always the greatest thing, because they usually have a really poor ammo pickup when you're running over the ammo drops left behind by eliminated enemies. So these are really ammo hungry weapons, and if you use them in auto fire especially, you'll find that the limited amount of ammo in the magazine as well as in your total ammo could be depleted really quickly. So that's the trade-off with these DMR weapons and high damage weapons as well. They're going to have small total ammo numbers as well as magazine numbers. Even if the magazine is pretty large, you won't have very many rounds replenished when you pick up enemy drops. So make sure you're aware of that, and I'm trying to make it clear to everyone, because there's times where I'll bring a particular weapon just to try it out and realize that its high damage is incredible. It helps really drop enemies quickly, but on an extremely long mission, you're gonna find yourself looking for ammo in all kinds of ways. So maybe this will help shed some light on the weapons that you need to be aware of that have this effect. As well as I'm going to add some skills to this build so you can see the maximum benefit for every weapon, regardless of how it's modded, from damage, accuracy, stability, you name it, even concealment. I'm going to try and keep all these weapons as concealable as possible. That way you're aware of the use of, or the possible use of, a critical build, or maybe even stealthing with these particular weapons. Well, let me get into the skills and show you what I've done. I took all the skills that I felt would have a positive impact on the weapon's stats as well as their damage numbers, if that's even possible. So first and foremost, I took in the mastermind tree in sharpshooter, I took basic stable shot for the 8 weapon stability that you'll gain, and as well as marksman basic for the 8 weapon accuracy that you'll get for any assault rifles, sniper rifles, and SMGs that are fired in single shot mode. Onto the enforcer tree, I've aced shotgun impact because it's going to give you a 15% increase in damage with all shotguns, as well as in the basic form giving you 8 stability added to any shotgun that you're using. You will need to take a point and put it in underdog if you're going to step into that particular skill tree. Here in tank, I took basic resilience just to get die hard aced. This is going to increase the ballistic vest by 20, so if you have an 80, it'll be 100 after you do this particular thing. Now all these others, these two here, transporter and shock and all, aren't really as important. I just needed to get up here to ace Iron Man. This is a really useful skill in its basic form. If you're using any other kind of armor, that like a ballistic vest for instance, you're going to gain 30% more value to your armor regardless of what kind it is. This one's only for the ballistic vests, and this one's for all the armor altogether. Now acing it will unlock you the improved combined tactical vest, which is the largest amount of armor you can put on in the game at a movement penalty. I'm sure it does slow you down quite a bit, but sometimes that's not even as important as being able to stay alive. So I aced that skill just so when I'm done with all the guns, I'll show you the differences in body armor as well. Now on to the technician tree. I took 4 points and aced steady grip in the oppressor branch, adding 8 weapon accuracy and 16 weapon stability by doing so. And in Ghost, I took a basic movement skill, duck and cover, and artful dodger, just to get inner pockets basic. This increases the concealment of your melee weapons by 2. And like I mentioned before, I'm looking to get concealment as well as the most damage possible. Here in Silent Killer, I took second wind basic to ace optical illusions. This one will, in its basic form, will make the enemies less likely to target you by 35%. And acing it will increase your concealment for each silent weapon by 1, and it reduces the concealment penalty of silencers by 2. So in other words, it's keeping your concealment really high, which will in turn give you a really low detection risk depending on how you mod your weapons. The professional, that's a skill that I aced to get 8 weapon stability, a quicker snap to zoom speed with all silenced weapons. But the real benefit of this acing this skill is that you'll gain 12 weapon accuracy with your silenced weapons. Now, specialized killing, if you're not aware, this is how you make any gun that can have a silencer on it as powerful as it can be. By acing this skill, you'll get 30% more damage with any silenced weapon, regardless of what class it's in. So if you're running a gun modded as high as you can without silencers, let's say it reaches 100. If you put a silencer on it, if it's capable of using such, you will reach a damage number of 130, mainly because you're getting 30% more damage with the silencer installed. Here in Fugitive, I aced Equilibrium. The basic will decrease the amount of time it takes to draw on holster pistols by 33%, but I was looking for a positive impact on weapon accuracy, so I got the 8 for all pistols when you ace Equilibrium. And one-handed talent, in the basic form of this skill, you only get a 5-point increase in the damage for any pistol you're using, but when you ace it, you add an additional 10 damage, so you're getting 15 more damage on whatever weapon, whatever pistol you're using. And finally, over here in Brawler, I took basic martial arts to get up here and ace pumping iron. This will increase the melee damage that you're outputting with whatever weapon you're using as a melee by 100%. So it's basically doubling whatever damage output it has. So that's also another skill that is fairly useful. But I'm doing all this just so I can show you how to get the most out of every weapon, regardless of what class, regardless of, you know, if it's a high damage weapon or a low damage weapon, these skills will still have an impact. So now on to the DMR weapons, starting with the AK rifle. In its base form, this weapon gives you 40 damage, 48 accuracy, and 60 stability with a concealment number of 16. Well, when you add a DMR kit, you're going to sacrifice your total ammo, and you will be able to put out some impressive numbers as far as damage is concerned. As you see, I added a plus 120 to the damage by adding a DMR kit to this AK rifle. And with all the skills that I have, it's going to take that number even higher. 214.7 is not the total number you can reach with this, but it's about as good as it gets if you're not trying to go too low in concealment. So there it is, the DMR kit is being added, and I could get one more concealment out of this if I remove the bigger the better suppressor and go for a medium suppressor, but I figured let's go for the maximum amount of damage. Now with the AK weapons, the PBS suppressor will give you a higher benefit as far as damage, but since I'm trying to keep things consistent and it does take a -5 from using the PBS as opposed to a -3 for using the bigger the better. I don't feel that +1 damage is worth the -5 in concealment. But I added the bigger the better suppressor. You probably can't see it because the DMR barrel is so long. There it is. And then I added a concealment boost. I took the Crab's rail, the AK rubber grip, the low drag magazine, and the folding stock. It gives me a concealment number of 21, which isn't too bad, but it's usable. You know, depending on the skills you use, it might not even be necessary to worry about concealment. Here onto the Car 4 rifle, which when you have all the mods trying to avoid any cost in concealment or whatever, if you're not worried about your detection risk, this weapon will be over 220 in damage. But the way I modded it, it's 216, which is still really high. And there it is. I added a DMR kit. I am using the bigger the better suppressor. I added a concealment boost. I'm using the EMO foregrip. Now the gadget I chose was the 45-degree red dot sight, and it's mainly because you can have a sight with a reticle on it at an angle on your rifle, so you don't necessarily need to use the iron sights. And I find it more useful than a light or a laser when you're talking more functionality. When you're going loud, I would definitely recommend one of these sights, either the 45-degree red dot or the Richtpunkt 45-degree sight. I added a straight grip. I took the thrust lower receiver. I did use a vintage mag for the 1 concealment, even though I'm losing 8 in the magazine. This weapon's going to hit so hard, I don't think you need more than 22 rounds in the mag anyway. I chose the folding stock and the lightweight upper receiver. Now you do have options to increase damage with the thrust upper receiver or the exotique receiver, but once again, the stability and accuracy is a little more important in my opinion, so I chose to go that route instead. But definitely 25 is a good concealment number for a weapon of this caliber. Really, it's going to put out some serious damage. It's really accurate, stable, which isn't quite as important, but it's still a good factor when involving multiple shots, so that's something to look at as well. Now onto the AK-762 rifle. This one's putting out 214.7 damage. Most of them will be in that particular area. I added a DMR kit, the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the Crab's rail, AK rubber grip, a low drag magazine, and a skeletal stock, giving this particular weapon a concealment number of 18, which isn't as good as I would like, but you can't always have it both ways. But this is really putting out a good amount of damage at 214. Accuracy is maxed out at 100, and stability is fairly high as well. So there you have it with the AK-762. On to probably the least concealable high damage weapon in the game, the M308 rifle. Now this one doesn't need, or doesn't even have available to it, a DMR kit, but because of the high damage number, it's in the class that I would consider a DMR weapon, along with the Cavity 9mm as well as the little friend assault rifle. Those are the three that I'm certain that don't have a DMR kit available but still put out DMR damage. And as you see, I'm using the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, and the Abraham body 11 is not so great when you're talking concealment, but this is a really venerable weapon when it comes to this game. Everybody either loves it or hates it. I neither hate it nor love it, but it is a really impressive weapon if you're using it, and you already know what I'm talking about. It's really easy to get this gun into a really accurate way of being, and the stability goes through the roof, and I mean, it's just a really good weapon to have, especially if you're a head shooter, single fire player. Definitely good weapon to use is that M308. Now on to the AMR 16 rifle. As mentioned before with the CAR 4, this one is also capable of reaching numbers over 220 when you're modding it in certain ways, but it utilizes the DMR kit, the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the blast from the past handguard. It's also using the 45-degree red dot sight, a straight grip, the thrust lower receiver, the L5 magazine, and this particular weapon didn't have a magazine available for concealment increase, so I chose either, you can choose the expert mag, the L5 magazine, or any of the others that you want to choose, but speed pull is also a good one, so there's just options, but I chose the L5 mag. And I also put on a wide stock. I'm using the lightweight upper receiver, and 19 isn't such a bad concealment number, but it's not as good as I would like it to be. I guess I could say that through this whole video. Now on to the Gewehr 3 rifle. This one also is reaching 214. Accuracy is at 100. Stability is extremely high, but concealment is fairly low. It's one of the trade-offs. Now I use the DMR kit, the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the plastic foregrip, the retro grip, and got to those particular numbers. It's very flat shooting. It's stable as you can get, and it's really high damage output is incredible. Anything over 200 is insanely strong. Now here is one of the DLC items that came with the Golden Grin Casino. It's the Cavity 9mm, and like I mentioned earlier, it's also one of those particular weapons that doesn't have a DMR kit available to it, but it doesn't need it because this weapon is already in that class. The damage output on this one is 214, accuracy is 100, stability is 52, which isn't quite as bad as it sounds, but it's not as good as some of the others. The real number that should shock you is the concealment. At 31, this thing is as good as you can get as far as a stealthing high damage weapon. So let's take a look. I used the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the Appellation foregrip, and that's all I used really, and this weapon is good to go right out the box for any kind of mission, loud or stealth. And as you see, puts out incredible damage. It's highly accurate when you made it with the skills that I used for this particular demonstration. On to the Little Friend 7.62 assault rifle. This came with the Scarface character pack. Its damage is 214.7, accuracy is 100, stability is 84, but the concealment is worse than the 308. So it's not going to be winning any contest for being concealable, but this thing is pretty impressive in its own right. It does have a small ammo pool, and it doesn't have a very high ammo count when you're talking 40 rounds. It does have a under barrel mounted grenade launcher, so that's I guess one of the big reasons why they had to decrease its concealment, because it would be terrible if this gun was a 31 in concealment and could do all it does. I don't think anyone would use any other weapon. But in any case, it's utilizing the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, which may seem like a waste, but I put it on anyway. And this is also utilizing the 45-degree red dot sight as a gadget, as opposed to putting a sight on it and losing one concealment point, or however many other points you're going to lose depending on which sight you use. So this particular weapon is definitely a high damage weapon, and deserves a look if nothing else. You guys should give it a try. Now I'm moving on to the Castigo 44 revolvers in the akimbo form. These in their base form will put out 180, but with the pistol skills you're going to get up to 204, which is pretty good. I mean, devastating. Accuracy is really high at 100. As with all akimbo weapons, you're going to lose stability, but it's not as important as the damage output and the quick way you can dispatch enemies with akimbo weapons is really insane, but it's part of the game, and you should give these a go. The only thing is they're not going to benefit from any of the specialized killing or silencer skills, so you just have to get what you get, so to speak. Now I'm utilizing the Diablo barrel for 8 more accuracy, concealment boost, and the cruise grip, which gives you 8 more stability. Now you could get more stability out of akimbo weapons by speccing into skills in the pistol tree, but I didn't go that far in this build. But 204, definitely heavy hitter. On to the akimbo Desert Eagles. Their base is 120, and when it's all said and done they're reaching 180.7. These will utilize a silencer, so that's why the number gets so high. I'm using the champion suppressor, a concealment boost, the bling grip, and if you wanted more damage and you don't really care about concealment, adding the long barrel is not a bad idea. But you know, it makes them look really long, and I've used them before. It is kind of cool looking, a little strange, but ultimately that's not what I'm trying to achieve. But that is an option for you. You can get 2 more damage out of it, but I think 180 is plenty, so that's why I just went the way I did. Now on to the shotguns in this primary section. The Mosconi 12 gauge shotgun, its base damage is 155, and its concealment is really high when you mod it properly. These particular shotguns, at least this one and the next one, do not have a silencer available for them, so you're just going to deal with a loud weapon. If that's not your thing, just steer clear of these next two, this one and the Jocelyn. At either rate, the damage increase is being helped by the triple-aught buckshot. The Roll Warrior barrel actually decreases accuracy and stability, but it adds plus 10 concealment. I use the concealment boost, and the Gangsta special stock also decreases accuracy and stability, but it affords you another positive 10 in concealment. So this thing is really really useful if you want to carry a loud primary around in stealth or even in a critical build. Now on to the Jocelyn over and under 12 gauge shotgun. This one won't reach the concealment of the Mosconi, but it's still reaching that same amount of damage. 155 as a base, but once modded properly and with the skills, you're going to get up to 204 damage out of this. So triple-aught buckshot is also helping that number. If you were to switch any round other than the AP slug, you're going to lose that plus 15. So 2 rounds in the shotgun category will give you that plus 15, the AP slug as well as the triple-aught buckshot. I did take the sawed-off barrel for the plus 10 in concealment, regardless of the accuracy and loss in stability. The concealment boost, and I went for the wrist wrecker stock once again for the +6 in concealment, which puts this very powerful shotgun at a concealment number of 22, which although isn't that great, it's not too bad either. Anything in the 20s is really useful. Here to the Breaker 12 gauge shotgun. Now this one is capable of using a silencer, so 249 is a really high number for any weapon, but especially so for the shotgun primaries. This one is using the triple aught buckshot, the short barrel, the silent killer suppressor, a concealment boost, and I've gotten 249 damage out of this, as well as a concealment number of 25, which definitely puts it in that realm of a stealthable weapon for sure. Now that's all I have for the primaries, as far as, in my opinion, as the high damage output weapons. Now I'm going to slide over here and do the secondaries that I consider high damage. Now most of the SMGs that are at 80 or above fall into that category of high damage, at least as far as I see it. So I put them on this list. There are just a few, well, it looks like 5. There seems to be quite a few pistols as well. So let's get to it straight away. And the Krinkov submachine gun. This one starts out at an 80, but with the right skills and silencers and things of that nature, you're going to reach 106 or possibly even higher with this particular weapon, depending on some of the things you can get away with and make it better with. So I chose firstly the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the aluminum foregrip, the AK rubber grip, a low drag magazine, and the skeletal stock. So 106.7, really good damage number. Accuracy's really good at 88. Stability's almost at 100 with 92. And the concealment number of 27 is really good, especially considering how hard this weapon will hit. Now on to the Swedish K submachine gun. Its modified damage output will be 106.7. Its accuracy is extremely high at 92. Stability's not bad either at 76, but this is probably one of the most concealable high damage weapons you're going to get, right along with that cavity 9mm in the primary slot. It's giving you a concealment number of 31, and with all that it's capable of doing, this is a really useful weapon as long as you can keep it fed, which is kind of difficult with these high damage weapons. I chose the grease barrel, a bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the ergo grip, the folded stock, and as you see, 106.7, really good accuracy, high concealment. It's a good weapon, it really is. Just gotta find a way to keep it full of bullets. Here, the Jackal submachine gun. This is from the John Wick weapon pack, and this is another one that's really well rounded. It gives you good high concealment number, accuracy is good, stability is good, and the damage is really good as well. So let's see what I've done. I took a bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the short magazine, a folded stock, and the twinkle grip. Now the twinkle grip has a laser and a light built into it, a flashlight, so if you're trying to spec into using a gadget with a laser or a flashlight or the combo, you don't need to, and those will cost you some concealment other than the compact laser module, whereas the twinkle grip doesn't cost you anything in concealment, but it is a positive impact in stability, so it's kind of why I went that route. But 106.7, 29 concealment, really cool by my standards. Now on to the CR 805B submachine gun. This is from the Biker Heist DLC, and it's also going to push that 106.7 damage, really good accuracy at 88, high stability at 100, and the concealment number isn't so bad either at 25. Now I chose to use a short barrel, the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the vintage mag, and that's all it took really to get the concealment I was looking for. Once again, some of these numbers could be one better in concealment just by simply replacing the bigger the better suppressor with the medium suppressor. So if you want a little more concealment, you get one more point by changing the silencer. Now on to the Tatanka submachine gun. This one is really good too. It's once again at that 106.7. Accuracy is not as high as some of them, but it's still up there where it needs to be in my opinion. Stability is extremely high, and concealment is good at 27. And like all the others, I utilized the bigger the better suppressor, a concealment boost, the AK rubber grip, and you've got high damage, fairly accurate, stable, highly concealable weapon. On to the pistols now. This is the Bronco 44 revolver. It already has an extremely high damage output without any mods, but when you spec in the pistol skills, you see the number went over 200, which is really welcomed. This one cannot be silenced, so I had to use other things to get it better. The flash hider is a good option. At the cost of minor accuracy, you're gaining high stability as well as +2 damage. The +3 concealment boost, the ergo wooden grip, the pocket surprise barrel, and the slimline body. 200 plus damage, fairly accurate with a concealment number of 33. This weapon is pretty impressive in my book. Now the broomstick pistol, this one has what I would consider a DMR kit, but it doesn't call it a DMR kit. This one really is just a mediocre pistol at a 65 base damage, but when you add certain mods to this thing, it gets really ridiculous at 254.9. Accuracy, as you see, is extremely high, stability as well, and concealment isn't so bad either. I'm using the champion suppressor, a concealment boost, the precision barrel is what's adding that DMR like damage increase, so that's what it takes. And as you see, it kind of makes this look really long but this is a high damage weapon, and if you stand away from it because of its pathetic numbers from the beginning or not so good numbers, you're missing out. This thing really has some thump on it, and it does a number. You could even put a stock on it and make it look more like a rifle, but it just costs too much in concealment. And for +16 stability, I don't think it's that necessary when you're already at 92 when you're talking stability. Now on to the Castigo 44 revolver. This came free with the Sangres character and the Sicario perk deck. This one obviously is a high damage weapon. Its base is 180 once modded or with the skills. It goes over 204. Accuracy is extremely high at 100. Once again, stability isn't so big a deal with a single fire weapon, but that concealment number of 29 is pretty excellent considering how hard this gun can hit. I did use a concealment boost as well as the Diablo barrel, and I put on the cruise grip. Now, either of these grips are going to give you a +8 in stability. This is how the Carnival grip looks, and I think the Cruise grip looks a lot cooler, just my opinion, but needless to say, that's why it's modded such. So yeah, that's another very accurate, very powerful handgun. Onto the 5.7 AP pistol. Its base is 120, but once again, with all the skills and the silencer abilities, this gun is going to be even better. The AP actually means armor piercing, so it will shoot through shields, some walls even. It's a really versatile weapon to use. I use it quite a bit now that we have it, but I modded it with a tin treated barrel, the Champion suppressor. I gave it a concealment boost. The extended mag adds a +4 to your magazine, but it doesn't hit you as far as a concealment penalty, so why not use it if you have it? And sights are okay on certain weapons. This one might be the exception, where you might want to put a sight on, just because you're going to be... I use it to shoot snipers and shields, to be honest, so it just gives you that little extra point of reference to aim, and it does add a bit of accuracy to the pistol at the cost of concealment, but it's not necessary because the accuracy is already through the roof. But another really good pistol with high damage output of 180.7, and it's exceptionally concealable as well, if I didn't mention that. Now onto the Deagle pistol. Base damage is 120, but when it's all said and done, 180.7. It's a really good number. It's really accurate, really stable, and highly concealable at 31. So just another good secondary if you're trying to find a strong secondary to complement any other weapon that you might be bringing as a primary. I use the Champion suppressor, a concealment boost, the bling grip, which actually gives you stability and 1 concealment, and that was it. Once again, this one has the same possibility as the akimbo version. You can add a +2 damage, +8 accuracy at a negative concealment penalty of 3, but that's totally up to you, so that's your choice. I'm just doing it this way so everyone gets an idea of what I'm trying to achieve. Now, the Peacemaker 45 revolver is another high damage weapon. It comes in at a 204 once it's all said and done. Accuracy is fairly good at 96, and concealment is really good at 29. I use the concealment boost, the shootout barrel, and got those numbers. It's not bad at all, actually, but I'm not a big fan of this particular one. Onto the Matever, or whatever, however you want to say it, the 357. This one is, in my opinion, one of the ugliest guns in the game, but it's really powerful. 204 damage, 92 accuracy. This thing is really good, and it does have a really decent concealment number. I'm using the Piccolo barrel, a concealment boost, and the Noir grip. Now this is another one of those pistols or weapons that you cannot silence, so it is going to be loud no matter what you do to it, but 27 is a good concealment number, so if you're using it for a critical build, it will help you keep that detection risk really low. Onto the baby Deagle. This came with the Point Break items, and it's almost in every way similar to the Deagle, except it's a little flatter shooting. I enjoy using this one a lot. This was one of my main stealthing weapons, and I use the threaded barrel, the Champion suppressor, a concealment boost. The lower receiver I'm using is the spike kit that actually gives you 1 concealment boost as well as a +4 in accuracy, and that's it. This weapon is good to go right out the gate. It's got a 32 concealment, 100% accuracy when modded this way with the skills I'm using, and that 180.7 damage is pretty good. Now onto the White Streak pistol. This came with the Hardcore Henry items. This was free download basically with the Jimmy character pack. So this is accessible by everyone, and it's very similar to the Baby Deagle. Maybe not as concealable, but one point here and there isn't going to make or break you. Now this prototype barrel, if you don't use a silencer and you use this barrel, it'll shoot through enemy body armor. Not to be confused with shields. It's any of the law enforcement that you see wearing those bulletproof vests and things like that. If you're shooting at them and you don't have the surefire ace skill, which penetrates body armor, you'll see the bullets just breaking on them. But if you use this barrel and you don't have surefire, you're still going to get those hits no matter where you're shooting them at, because the prototype barrel for the White Streak pistol actually allows you to penetrate enemy body armor. So just a heads up. But I'm not using it for this particular weapon. I'm using the Champion Suppressor, the Concealment Boost, and that was it. So 31 in concealment, 100% accuracy, 180 damage. That's a good secondary weapon, to be sure. It really is. Now on to the shotguns in this particular video. The Judge shotgun, it's putting out 249 damage, and it's really impressive what this thing does. A lot of people use it for stealth. I do as well. Some people use it for going loud, or a concealment build, or a critical build. It is very versatile, but like all the other high damage weapons, it's not very efficient on picking up ammo. So kind of need to, I like pairing it with a highly efficient ammo pickup weapon. And when this one's empty, I just switch to the original and, you know, my primary, and I'll use that, and then it just balances out really. But this one's a devastating hand shotgun, really. It's more like a pistol, but it hits like a shotgun. It is a shotgun for all intents and purposes. But I'm utilizing the triple-aught buckshot, the Silent Killer Suppressor, a Concealment Boost, and as you can see, 249 damage. It's really fairly accurate at 72. Stability is 72, but the concealment number of 31 makes the Judge shotgun a really good choice if you're going to go with a shotgun as a secondary. Now on to another item that came with some download, the Goat Simulator, the GSPS 12 gauge shotgun. Its damage is right there with that Judge shotgun, albeit the accuracy isn't as good, but the stability is better, and concealment isn't as good either, but it's still a really good shotgun to try out. I have the triple-aught buckshot, the Riot barrel, the Silent Killer Suppressor, a Concealment Boost, and the Stakeout stock, which all help to give that high concealment number, as well as making this gun one of the hardest hitting shotguns in the game. And I like to say it like that, hardest hitting shotgun in the game. It's really good. So that's all the weapons that I would consider high damage. And now as far as melees, we may as well show you those. This is my favorite melee weapon, mainly because it gives you the amount of damage that the katana will, but it's more concealable. So you might lose about 25 in the range, so the katana will reach out further, but you're doing the same amount of damage, but this one is more concealable. So if you're trying to really maintain a minimum detection risk, you probably might want to try this one out. But I mean, you can try any of them out, but because of the skill I'm using, pumping iron, it took that 70 value and doubled it. So the damage from one hit is going to be 140, and that's pretty good considering that there's only a few weapons that even get close to that 70 base damage. But none of them are going to be as concealable as this. I think the other one is for sure the Spear of Freedom. It's going to give you that same 70 value when you're talking the damage. So the difference would be in its range, concealment, and I'm looking for the most concealment. But yeah, you can easily turn a mediocre melee weapon into a pretty heavy hitter. This one's got 30 in its base damage, but I took it to 60, so it just really varies. You can go through and see all of these and give them a go. Definite useful skill to have is like bloodthirst mated with that pumping iron. You'll be able to whack just about anything if you do a fair amount of killing. When you decide to use your melee, it's going to be really devastating, so it's a good skill to try out. That's kind of my solution to dealing with the dozer threat when I'm really close to them. At either rate, let's see. Okay, now I'll get to the armor. As you see, because I'm using Iron Man Basic, even though it's an ace skill, it's giving me 15 more skill points added to my armor. It would normally be 50, now it's 65. Now I'm going to the ballistic vest. This one is going to go from a 90 to a 143. That's all because of the skills that I put in Die Hard, aced, and then the extra 30% increase from Iron Man Basic. Now the lightweight ballistic vest goes from an 80 to a 130. The heavy ballistic vest goes from 100 to 156. Now the flak jacket, as you notice, it's got a 156, same as the heavy ballistic vest. It's because the flak jacket is not impacted by Die Hard Ace. So if you're going to use the flak jacket, don't waste the 4 points to ace Die Hard, because those extra 20 points are only for anything that's a ballistic vest. The combined tactical vest puts out 182, and this improved combined tactical vest, it reaches 260. So although it is the most value you can have in an armor, you can come fairly close with any other armor without having the skill so high into it. But that's all a matter of preference. I usually go with a two-piece suit or the lightweight ballistic vest because I use the grinder mostly, and the grinder doesn't work if you're using anything other than the lightweight ballistic vest or the two-piece suit. So it is pretty comfortable knowing that I can wear a lightweight ballistic vest that has an armor value that's almost as good as a base combined tactical vest at 140. So that's kind of what I do with the numbers, and maybe it'll be useful to you. I hope this video proves useful, and as always, take care, be well, and good games, everyone.